that defines like my life. I feel like it's just every day, just having the ability to manage your schedule and make the hard decisions and sacrifice things that you know you might enjoy doing in the present, but it might not necessarily be good for you in the future.
Today on the Tournament Code, we are joined by JM Butler. JM currently plays on the number one ranked Auburn men's golf team and has broken multiple scoring records in his college and amateur careers. JM won the Maui Jim Intercollegiate in 2021, shooting minus 17 for 54 holes, which is a school scoring record. In 2021, JM also won the Kentucky State Amateur, shooting minus 18, which is a Kentucky State Amateur scoring record. I had the opportunity to compete against JM in that 2021 State Amateur in the final group, and it was one of the most fun days that I've ever had in my competitive golf career. We both played really well that day. I shot a 66. JM shot 65. He's just an unbelievable competitor, and I hope you guys enjoy this episode.
We appreciate you taking the time to join us today. We know you're from Kentucky, but tell us a little bit more about yourself and just how you got into playing golf.
Yeah, so I'm from Louisville, Kentucky, and I'd always say I was really competitive in everything I was doing, whether it was basketball, football, or just kind of just even playing in the friends, doing whatever. I was just always competitive. I was just always wanting to um, kind of beat people. And so I kind of got into golf at an early age. My dad played for the University of Kentucky and then played on a few of the mini tours for a couple years. And he kind of introduced me at an early age, and then never really got serious into golf until I was about 10 years old. And that's kind of when I started playing in tournaments and really getting into it.
So, when you started playing in tournaments around 10 years old, what kind of tournaments did you start playing in? And then when did you start to get into the more regional or national junior tournaments?
Yeah, so the first tournament I ever played in was the Musselman Dunn match play at Seneca Golf Course, and grew up kind of playing at Seneca a lot. And I played my first match against Hudson Hummel, and it was just like a 9-hole deal because I had to have been only 11 or 12 years old. And I played against Hudson Hummel, and it was 30 degrees, hailing, like 20-mile-an-hour winds. It was like the most miserable round of my life. And I ended up beating Hudson. And after the match, my dad was like, "Man, it was cold out there. Like, are you sure this is something you want to do?" And I was like, "Man, I loved every second of that." Like, after that day, like, I knew it was kind of something I wanted to do. Um, I'm just a little crazy. Like, that weather, like, I feel like would drive a lot of kids away, especially considering it was my first competition. But I just loved being out there. I loved the mental test that it brought to me, and I loved competing and I loved winning that day. So that was my first tournament. I started playing a bunch of the Musselman Dunn tournaments, and on that tour, played a little bit of the Kentucky Junior Golf Tour, um, and then I would say um, started playing in AJGAs around 14 years old, just in the Junior All Stars and such. Um, and yeah, that was kind of the first time I got introduced into the AJGA, which changed everything for me with, um, playing in national tournaments against the best players. So yeah, I would say started playing at AJGA Junior All Stars around 13 or 14, probably closer to 14. And from there, just worked my way up from the Junior All Stars to the Opens and then to the Invitationals.
That's beautiful. And as you mentioned, AJGA is high level play, like especially at the junior level, it's serious stuff. Uh, but to play in that, obviously, you got to be a really solid player, and especially to play for an extended period of time in those. Did you take swing lessons when you were young? Did you work with your dad? Who did you work with, and kind of how did you develop your game over that course of time?
So my first swing instructor was Corey Smith. He was the assistant pro at Louisville Country Club, which was the country club I was lucky enough to grow up at. Um, blessed. Thank you to my parents. And so I took lessons from Corey Stith. And when I was 12 years old, he went and took the head pro job at Tate's Creek in Lexington. And I needed a new coach. And I talked to Corey about it because, I didn't really feel like driving back and forth from Louisville to Lexington, and I was so young. And I decided to work with the head pro at LCC, who was Scott Sedgwick. And I worked with Scott throughout my junior career and throughout my high school career, all the way up to my college career. So yeah, Scott taught me a lot about my short game, helped me with my swing a bunch, helped me with the fundamentals of putting. And then my dad was my mental coach, and he's been my mental coach basically since I started playing the game of golf.
Very cool. As far as those lessons go, what was it like going off to college, being on your own, and having to figure out some of the? I mean, when you get to be as good as you are, a lot of the swing stuff, etc., you're not as concerned about it, day to day, and it's a lot of it's maintain and continue to develop that skill. Did you start working with anyone when you got to college, or did you more just go off on your own and uh, figure out what you needed to do as you were going along?
Yeah, so I got to college, and I would never call myself. I've never been a great ball striker, I would say, through my junior career, high school career. And so I got to college, and our head coach, Nick Kleinert, knows a lot about the golf swing, and he has a lot of connections. And so I talked to him over and over again about what I could do to make my ball striking better, and he recommended Scott Hamilton. And Scott Hamilton's out of Cartersville, Georgia. He's worked with probably a dozen tour players, and I was like, heck yeah, like, I want to go somewhere and see someone who's been around tour players and has made them better. And so, yeah, I've been working with Scott basically since the first month of school, and it's been great. He's taken me from a very average to below ball striker to a very high level and performing ball striker, and honestly, I've always been a great putter and always had a great short game. It's just kind of been my ball striking that's held me back. And in the last few years, I've kind of made the changes and still am making the changes that I need to be making. So I'm on a good, I have a good plan now.
From what I know about Scott Hamilton, he's not going to be a guy that goes in there and makes huge changes in your swing. But what were some of those changes that he did make for your swing?
Okay, so I got to college and my swing, it was kind of a mess. I was very bent over. My posture was very hunched over. Right away, when I took the club back, I would drag the club. There was no hinge in my backswing. And then from the top, I would find hinge by kind of snatching the club. And that would allow the club to get set, but it also put the club in a very steep position. And from there, in the steep position out of the top, I would have to stall my hips and like basically stall everything in order for the club to shallow so I could hit the ball. And then when I stalled everything, the club would just wrap around me. And there's still a little left over in it. It's kind of a lot, and I've worked very hard on changing those motor patterns.
That's cool. Well, you're in good hands with him. I know I've worked with um, Sean Webb and Mike Renato. I don't know if you know them. They're also based out of
Yeah,
Cartersville, and they share. If you've been to that
the
facility with
3D.
back in the storage area, this the storage area. I don't know if you've been back to
I
that
sure
one.
have.
I
Yeah, they're
know.
great.
Yeah, they do well, and they've had a lot of good things to say about Scott. And as far as those changes in your game goes, I think from the outside looking in, like it might not have been like as obvious that you were working on swing changes or anything like that because you played at such a high level uh, when you were younger. But you came in like in high school. You won the 2018 KHSA state championship. You're Mr. Golf, which at a high school level is good, but as you know, college is another level. And you were all freshman team your first year. You were, You had a stroke average of, I think, 72.33. You were freshman of the week a few times. So you came in playing some solid golf. And same thing sophomore year. It seems like, again, like, I don't know if it's swing related, and I imagine there's a lot more going on just of skill acquisition, but same thing sophomore year, putting together one of the best seasons that your school has seen as far as scoring average goes. You had a scoring average of 70.56, and slowly climbing and improving. How much of that do you attribute to, hey, like, we made some mechanical issues which helped reduce variance, and how much do you attribute just to putting yourself in those positions and being under pressure and playing against a bunch of good players and getting used to it?
I would say it's a lot of both. Obviously, I don't feel like I would have performed. I would be in the same place as I am today if I didn't make those mechanical changes. Because I wouldn't honestly. Like the swing I was playing with was not going to take me to the next level, and I don't think I could have played it at a high level with that swing for very long. I might have been able to do it for a couple of months, but it's not nearly as functional as my swing is now. On the other hand, I've matured a lot, you know. As I said, I've always been very competitive and like fiery, and to a certain degree that's good, but I've always struggled with kind of um managing that and managing my expectations. And my freshman year to my sophomore year, I came in as a freshman, and we had the same team that we did where we went to the semifinals at nationals at Carson Creek. Like we had Jovan Rabula, who was a 3-time All American, Grayson Huff, Brandon Manchino, Wells Paget. We had all those guys, and they didn't leave because they got that extra COVID year. And coming in, I just really wanted to compete against them and try to beat them out for a spot. It just took a lot of grit, and I feel like I've always had that. But I also learned a lot from them, playing with them, being around them. Um, I learned about a lot about leadership and maturity, and obviously, like I'm not perfect in those areas by any sense, but it's something that I definitely attribute to my success from freshman to sophomore year.
Kind of like Daniel was saying, you've really had success at every level. You won the high school state championship in 2018. You won the state amateur in 2021, and now you've won twice in college. Why do you think you've had success at every level? And what do you think allows you to like keep getting better each year? You know, a lot of people may have success at the junior level or kind of right when they get to college, but they sort of just plateau or decline.
That's a good question. I would say my grit, my perseverance, my discipline. I've always been very disciplined, but the number one thing would be grit.
Perfect. Let's talk about that grit. That's something that I think Carol Dweck had a book about. That's one of the things that when you're looking at people's characteristics as far as long term success, grit is one of those things that is a unique factor and something that is highly predictive because everybody comes to the table with different skills. Everybody comes to the table with different abilities, but the ability to stick to doing something over and over and stick to a process can help separate you over the long run. And as you said, that's something that's helped go for you. So walk us through kind of how you view grit and specifically your mental approach when you're playing, how you manage expectations, because it sounds like that's a key component of that. When you're out there playing, how do you stay in it? When you're having a good day, how do you make sure you're not like losing yourself with results? And the same thing when you're having a bad day, how do you not lose yourself in results?
That's a great question too. And that is a tendency of mine, is to focus too much on the results, and I've been working on that. It's hard not to, man. You're playing one of the most result oriented sports in the world, where everybody looks at the leaderboard and says what place you're in and how many under par you are, and it's really hard to block that out. But I think you just have to have faith in your process, and you have to have a plan, and you have to make disciplined decisions and stick to that plan every day. That's basically all it is. That defines like my life. I feel like it's just every day, just having the ability to manage your schedule, and make the hard decisions and sacrifice things that you know you might enjoy doing in the present, but it might not necessarily be good for you in the future.
I love that. That's something that I hold close to myself as well. I kind of look at it as, it's very easy to want, especially in college, to want to go to that party, have that drink, do all those extra things. Not that you can't do those things, but you do that consistently enough over time, especially in a game that's physically as demanding as golf. It can be hard to do. So when you're trying to implement discipline, what does it look like for your like daily routine? You say discipline's important to me. It's how I get to where I am, and I just make sure that I do the right things day in and day out. What are those things you're doing day in, day out to make sure you're on track?
Well, I'm lucky where we have a good schedule here at Auburn. Um, for some people, it might not be the same case in school. I have great advisors, great coaches that can help me with my time management. But from a day to day standpoint, it's working out. It's finding time to work out, do your classes, get all your work done for school, and then playing golf. And I found that even like another aspect which I haven't touched on yet is like maintaining relationships with your friends and your family. Like that's probably the hardest thing for me right now is that like I'm balancing school, I'm balancing golf, I'm balancing my time in the gym, and I'm also trying to find time to balance relationships and things that are outside of school, golf, and the gym. Because those 3 areas, like, I feel like I'm great in, but finding like, taking 20 minutes out of your time to, like, call someone you care about, like, call a friend that you haven't talked to in a while and just make sure they're doing okay is definitely something I can work on. Yeah, it's just tough, like, you just gotta manage your time, and you really have to be disciplined that you're not wasting any time, you know? Like, but it's so easy nowadays for just to pull out your phone and spend 20 minutes on social media or you know, look at Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok. It's just so easy.
So, what are some of the tangible things that you do to manage your time? Like, do you use a journal? Do you, use a planner on your phone? Or how do you tangibly manage your time if you do anything at all?
I would say I could get better in this area too. I have my whole practice routine like written out. So when I don't have anything to do with school or in the gym, I'd have like everything that I want to do when I get to the course. Like whether that's like usually it's like an hour of ball striking, like an hour of wedges, an hour of putting, an hour of short game. Like I want to get those 4 things done. I would say I don't have a tangible. Obviously for the team I have a schedule that's like okay, you need to be here like you're required to be here at a certain time, you're required to be here at a certain time, but for me personally like I don't have anything that's tangible that I can just look at every morning and say like, okay, this is what I'm doing in my day. That's probably the next step for me. Like
I like that journal that you keep as far as having your practice lined up every day. I think that's something tangible and good because a lot of guys, having been there myself, go out to the course and they're like, well, I guess I'm going to hit golf ball. I'm going to hit on the range until I feel good
right,
about it. I'm going to hit some pitches and some chips until I feel good about it, and then I'm gonna hit some putts till I feel good about it. And then if I don't feel good about it, I'll spend all my time like trying to feel good about it. And you go home, and at the end of the day, what you've most of the time accomplished is just feeling good about something, but not necessarily getting anywhere. So when you're on the range and you're practicing and you're spending that hour on ball striking, how do you break it up? How do you make sure that you're getting productive practice with your time?
I would say I split my ball striking up into a couple different categories. The first one I would say is my technical practice. I'm not aimed at a target or anything. I take out 20 or so balls and I'll split up my balls. So I'll have technical practice, competitive practice, and then random practice. And as I said, my technical practice is things that I'm working on with Scott, like different body motions, or like where the club needs to be, any of that technical stuff. And I'll have let's say 10 or 15, 20 balls set out aside for that. And then I'll have 10, 15, 20 balls set aside for competitive practice, and usually that's with gates. Like I'll take a 9 iron, 8 iron, 7 iron, whatever club. I'll say, okay, like I'm envisioning, or we even have on a range here at Auburn, like from 150, we have gates that are set 20 feet apart from each other, and I'll just be like, okay, like I'm not gonna leave here until I get 9 out of 10 in between those gates. And then for my random practice, which is a lot I do with wedges, we have wedge pods that from like 50 yards to 100 yards. So I'd be like, okay, like here's 20 balls. Let's hit like this one with a 54-degree, the 60-yard wedge pod. And then it doesn't really matter if I make it or miss it or not because it's random. So I'm moving on to the next yardage or club or whatever that may be. And so for the next shot, I'll take a 50-degree and go to the 100-yard pod. And then the next shot, I'm taking a 60-degree and going back to the 50-yard pod. Just keeping things interesting and keeping things fun, I think is very important in my practice for full swing.
Is there any sort of on-course practice that you do, or does Auburn require that you guys do any on-course practice, or is most of your practice kind of on the range there?
We do have play days and we do a lot of on-course stuff and we do qualify a lot. But I'd say we don't we a lot of our stuff is on our own. So if I want to go do on-course practice, it's really convenient here. We're very lucky to have access to 5 different golf courses all within 15 minutes of the facility, and they're relatively, available anytime. So I can just call them, say I want to be out there in an hour, and then just go in a cart and just play as many holes as I want. And I think that's great, and I think that's really important. But yeah, that's how I get most of my on-course practice done. Is if let's say I finish my practice and I want to go play 9 holes, like I'll just go over here to AU Club, which is I mean, I can walk to the first tee from here, and I'll hop in a cart and go play 9 holes, and it's really easy, and I can just play 2 balls, play 3 balls, like it doesn't matter. It's amazing the type of facilities we have down here. So I'd say that's how I get my on course practice in.
Kind of switching gears to, you talked about how one of your strengths is your mental game. And one of the most common things that I hear from guys that are looking to turn pro is mental barrier of going low. And you have broken multiple 54 hole scoring records. First of all, you broke the state M scoring record. You shot minus 18. And then you broke the Auburn scoring record, shot minus 17 for 54 holes. What has allowed you to go low in those tournaments? And what do you think is a good way to mentally approach a tournament round when you need to go low?
I think you have to approach when you're playing a course that there's going to be a lot of birdies and a lot of people who are going to have low rounds. You have to have a lot of confidence. I mean, honestly, any course you play, you have to have a lot of confidence. I'd say that's the most important thing. And I feel like I've always been such a great putter. Like the courses that allow for a lot of birdies, like it's typically easy to hit the green, and then like from on the green, it's just I'm just making the putt. When you really have it going, and you're sitting at like 3, 4, 5 under par, you can't. It's easy for me to say like, but you can't let up. You have to keep coming because you don't know if one shot's gonna count or not. Because every shot does count, and you are gonna make mistakes. But if you really have something going for you, like just keep the pedal to the metal and keep doing what you're doing and trust in each swing and trust in each shot and having complete confidence in everything you do. And not having any fear is a big thing.
That mirrors something that we talked with Lainey Fry about, and she kind of said that she kind of has learned to roll with how the round is going. When it's going good, you don't question when things are going good. You try to stay in it. You try to stay focused, but you don't say, "Oh, when's the next mistake going to happen? When is something going to go wrong?" You just try to stay in it and keep pushing there. When it comes to getting into those tournament rounds and just tournaments in general, what have you noticed as far as high school to college? Like high school tournaments are different. Like an AJGAs probably prepare you pretty well, but what's it been like, playing in these high level tournaments, and what tournaments have made you feel nerves when you're playing them, and how do you react when you feel those nerves?
Well, first of all, I think the setups are a lot more challenging in college than they are in high school. The pins are tucked closer to the edges, the courses are longer, the rough's higher, fairways are everything. Um, is harder about a college tournament. I would say I feel nervous every time I play in a tournament, because for me, like, that's what I play golf for, is to feel that. Like, if I didn't feel that, I don't think I'd play golf. I love feeling that little tingle sensation or whatever you want to call it, just that excitement, like that gets me going. Like I feel like that's the reason I like that. That's what I live for, honestly. NCAA's, I felt that at regionals. Definitely, you feel that. When you got to be in that top five to go to nationals. Yeah, I mean, honestly, every time. Especially when you're in contention and you really want it that badly, you feel it, and it's the best feeling in the world.
With those nerves, a lot of people have echoed what you said. They like feeling the nerves, they like being excited, but they also you have to manage the nerves to make sure you don't get caught up living too far in the future, or if something goes wrong, living too far in the past. And a lot of the ways people do that, I know, is through routines. They'll have a routine that they run through before the round, or some sort of, not superstition for the lack of a better word, but like a continual process that they go through. Is there anything that you do to try to make sure, hey, like when you step on that first tee, we talked with Jacob Cook one time. He said, you know, there are rounds that I feel 100% prepared when I step on the tee. What do you do to make sure, like, that's not something that's possible all the time, but when you get on that first tee, is there a routine that you run through beforehand so that when you're there, you're like, hey, I've been here before, like done this a million times, like I feel a little nervous. It's okay, but I've done these things, and so I know that I'm here and ready to play.
Yeah, I try to calm myself down a lot with my breathing. And typically before my rounds, I'll meditate for 5 or 10 minutes. Because I just get so amped up that like I don't think I'd be able to hit a ball if I just didn't focus on my breathing and meditate. And it really slows me down when I do that, and keeps things in perspective and keeps me in the present and on the course. When I notice that kind of thinking about the future too much, um, I just kind of look down at my feet and say, like, this is where we are. Like, this is, let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Like, let's focus on what we're doing right now, and everything will take care of itself. But yeah, I'd say my breathing for sure.
When you're focusing on your breath and when you're meditating, is there a specific meditation that you're doing? Is there a specific program you're following? What exactly are you focusing on or using as an aid? Because for example, I use a meditation aid, waking up. I want to meditate every day, and that just helps guide me. And especially like when it catches me living too far in one direction or the other, it catches me. Is there any particular thing you use, or is it just more focus on the breath and try to sense yourself being present?
I'd say it's more focusing on my breath and trying to just focus on. I'm focusing on my breath, but I'm trying to I'm trying to achieve the sensation or the feeling of absolute like nothingness. I'm basically just trying to find like that peace that'll calm me down and get me ready to take on the challenge that I have in front of me. So when I'm meditating, like, obviously there'll be thoughts of the round or whatever else might be going on in my life that kind of like come in, and I just try to like see those for how they are, and then I just like let them pass.
Along with that mental meditation, you mentioned that you have a routine, a physical pre-shot routine that helps you stay in the present and be mindful. Is there a mental routine that you go through along with this physical routine, or are there different things that you tell yourself when just walking into the shot?
So like my routine for a shot is typically like, first I'll assess the lie, and then kind of figure out like how is this ball gonna play like a normal yardage, or is it gonna play different, like based on the wind, the elevation, and the lie. And then once I figure that out, I'll pick the right club, and then I really try to focus on my visualization when I'm standing behind the ball, like how I want the ball to fly. So I'm focusing on like how high it's gonna be, like which way it's gonna curve, how it's gonna land on the green, and then when I'm over the ball, I just I try to focus it on my target. Is basically all I'm trying to do, and then I just keep telling myself like just focus on your target. Like, don't worry about your swing. Just focus on your target, and everything else will take care of itself. I try to keep it as simple as possible.
Speaking of your target when you're on the course, is there a system that you use to come up with a target? And how do you come up with targets both off the tee and into the greens?
I'll try to pick the smallest target as possible. It's like off the tee. It's usually it's always something in the distance. It's not usually like a part of the fairway or the fairway. It's usually something online where I want the ball to end up. That's just in the background, whether it's like a tree or a leaf or a bush. Um, and then into the greens, it's kind of the same thing, and I'll try to focus on like not just the flag stick, but like the very top of the flag stick or the flag itself, and that's all I'm thinking about. So when I step up to a tee shot or an iron shot or really any shot, I don't even see the ball. I just see where I want the ball to go.
When it comes to being in college and playing at that level, there's a lot going on, but you also have the nice resources of having coaches there who can help kind of guide you and provide some experience and some stability. What have you learned from your coaches at Auburn, and what do you wish you would have known when you were a junior that you've learned from them since then?
I think from our head coach Nick Kleinert, I've learned a lot about my swing, and like like the mechanics. Um, from him, I've learned a lot about managing my time and even more about working hard and why I'm working hard and what I wanna do. And then from Chris Williams, who's been a great addition to our team, I feel like I've learned about a lot about on course scoring, how to manage your ball. And like it might not be like something big, but it might be just something like, okay, like we just played 4 events in the fall and we're kind of like going back over like the shots I hit, and he might be like, okay, like you were in trouble here and you made double bogey when you could have had a chance at par or made bogey at worst. So it's kind of just those things. And then another great addition we've had this year is Buddy Alexander. I would say that's the person recently who I've kind of been talking about the mental game with the most, just because he's been around golf his whole life and seen many different tour pros and coached college golf for over 30 years. So yeah, he's been great for us.
Mentioning your coaches and assessing, the fall season and tournament rounds. You guys won 3 out of 4 tournaments as a team. So, how do you guys assess that season? It was obviously a great season, but how do you guys assess that season for going forward, and how do you guys assess individual rounds and individual tournaments?
Yeah, obviously we had a great fall. All the guys were excited to see that we were ranked number one, but it doesn't change anything. It doesn't change what we're trying to do here. Our goal is to win a national championship, and if we can just try to strive, if we can try to do things that will help us reach that goal every day. As I assess the fall season, it's just yeah, we had a great fall. Like, but that's what we expect of each other. We expect of each other to go out and win. Like, we're not showing up to these tournaments to finish second, and the coach isn't expecting that either. We all expect to win. And so it doesn't really come as a surprise that we won 3 out of the 4. Honestly, we should have won 4 out of the 4. But yeah, it's just we just have to build on it going into the spring is all. And we're in a great position now. We got really really close knit group of guys. They're all like brothers to me, and we're all playing great. So
That is cool. When it comes to rec- one side of college golf, and that's recruiting or like or and getting people to come to your school. Not anything specific about recruiting, because I think there's NCAA rules about that, maybe, but more to the fact, like I can remember when we had recruits coming to Belmont, there are guys that would come in and they'd be nice and they'd be good golfers, but they wouldn't be the right culture fit. And I can remember several instances of that. And guys, having an attitude like if a guy was, not cool to his parents, we took note of that. And we're like, man, like if he's going to be mean to his parents, like how's he going to treat the people that didn't bring him into this earth? When it comes to like having teammates around you that can push you, that's important for being a culture fit at Auburn. What have you really valued as far as, having your teammates around you and what they bring to the table for you?
I'd say the biggest thing is we're always looking out for each other. Um, we're always like, like if we notice one of the guys are down, we're like, we'll check on him. We'll be like, hey man, like, is everything okay? Like, do you want to talk? And we can trust each other. Like, if I tell someone, if I tell someone anything, like I know I can trust them to keep my word. And that's a big thing is trust between your teammates. I think without trust, like you don't you don't really have that camaraderie and chemistry. Um, but the guys are a lot of fun. We enjoy hanging out together. Um, we enjoy laughing together. We enjoy eating together. We just enjoy doing everything together. And there's not one thing that if I wouldn't go do with the guys just because it's so much fun being around with them. But yeah, trust is kind of like what takes our group of guys just to a different level. Is just because like I feel like I can talk to those guys about anything.
That is cool. That's something that, every now and then, at least for Cooper and I in college, like you find maybe one person or two people you can talk about. To have a whole team of brothers is something special. When it comes to hanging out with them, you play golf together, you do all these things together, and then you get to the off season. A lot of times people take not like a big break, but they're like, all right, like I'm going to take a little bit of break. So you've talked about how, you've got to manage school, you got to manage golf, you got to manage working out, and you got to manage personal relationships. When you're not playing golf and doing all that, what do you do for fun to try to kick back and relax and like make sure that you're not like thinking about golf or obsessing over it?
Well, I would say watch some Auburn football, but that hasn't been much fun this season. Yeah, but the basketball season's coming up soon, so I'm sure we'll have a lot of fun then. No, but just well, we have a golf house. So anytime we go over there, just we'll text in the group chat like it might be a weekend, like a Friday night or a Saturday night. Just like we'll text each other and be like, hey, like bring the ping pong table because like we're gonna have some matches against each other or something like that. Like anything that's fun that just gets everyone together and enjoying each other's company.
Do you win a lot of your ping pong matches because you're so competitive?
I win most of them. We got a couple kids on our team. Brennan Valdez is really good, and Evan Vo is pretty good. But I might squeak in a win every so often against them too.
That is cool. I can remember again. I can remember like my first. I think it was my first day of college golf. We were out practicing, and I was injured at the time, so I wasn't doing much. But we had not a golf house like you have, but there was a place that we had that had a ping pong table there, and whole team was sitting around playing against each other. And I still have a video of a guy just ripping a perfect smash across the net. My other teammate can't respond, and everyone going crazy about it. So those are memories that you don't forget. Beyond just like hanging out with your teammates, there's playing in tournaments with your teammates, and when you're playing in tournaments with them, you finish up a round, you get back in the van. You kind of said that you help each other out when you're down. What do you try to do to make sure that your teammates are like focused on what they need to be focused on and not like, too down on themselves? Because bad days happen and your teammates, so you don't want to like, it's very easy. We've talked about it a lot on here. It's easy for someone to go out there and shoot 78 and say, hey, I'm Daniel Hammer 78.
The cool thing about team golf is you could have a round where you go out and shoot 78, but then have the next day where it doesn't matter. You're playing for your team. You can go out and shoot a score and have it count and have it contribute to the team's success. So anytime one of us has a bad round, like we're not really worried about it. Like we know what we're capable of, and we have so much belief in one another. Like we know that if someone had a bad round, like they're just gonna go out the next day and do their thing and try to contribute a score to the team.
That makes sense. When it comes to putting up scores, we've kind of talked about, we kind of glossed over though some of the bigger tournaments that you played, and not just in your college season, but beyond the college season. I think your freshman, between your freshman and sophomore year, you played in the USAM at Oakmont and reached the round of 16, if I'm not mistaken. What was it? What's it like? What's the difference between playing in college events where you have your team there to support you, and when you're playing in these elite events where your college team isn't there, they might, like, your teammates might be around but they're not there to support you. What's it like playing in that, and how do you kind of adjust for that?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely different, but I'd say like the tournaments I go to in the summertime, like I'm so close with the guys on the team. If they're playing, like I'm staying with them. So it's not that much different. Like yes, I'm not playing for Auburn necessarily, but I'm still with those guys and I'll see those guys at the tournaments and like, have fun with them and stuff. But for the tournaments that they're not there, it's just, I've always been so focused on what I'm trying to do, that I don't really think about it. It's just, I'm going out there and just I'm playing a round of golf and I'm trying to do as well as I can.
I want to go back to high school. And, a big problem for Kentucky junior golfers is, what do I do in the wintertime? And so I'm sure you had a good winter practice routine slash workout routine. And I'd like to hear what you did to prepare yourself for college and for those, high level junior tournaments that you were getting ready for in the summer.
Yeah, so when I was younger, LCC did not have anything indoor. They now have like a really nice simulator. But when I was younger and I was a junior golfer, I was just like, let's go embrace it. Like it didn't matter how cold it was, like 30 degrees, 20 degrees, it didn't matter. Like I'd throw on enough clothing so I could barely get that backswing finish. It I just go out and play. Like I remember sometimes I'd be so miserable out there and like questioning my entire existence and just like almost crying. But I was just like, like I just look around and be like, no one else is out here. No one else wants it as bad as me. Like this is awesome. You know, I'm just doing something that's gonna make me stronger and build those calluses on my mind. And like I was lucky that I kind of realized that from an early age, because if I didn't do those things, like I don't think I'd be where I am now. But as I got older, I think when I turned 17, we finally got a little net in the back of the the bag room, and then I think I just hung out in there for most of the winters. But yeah, when I was younger, it was just embrace it. And then when I was like 12 and 11 and 13, like I, you know how in like middle school, like it's like weird if you wear pants, kind of. Well,
Hmm.
that's how it was in my middle school. So I would just show up in shorts and like 3 jackets, and they'd be like, "What the hell are you doing out here? It's 25 degrees and you're in shorts." I was just like, "I'm not wearing pants. That's weird." But yeah, just kind of embracing it, and like it was kind of that mindset, like what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So.
That's smart. I can remember, I had a turning point in my head. I mean, most people don't like to play in the rain for one reason or another. Partway through, I can't remember how old I was. I think it was like high school or college. I was like, honestly, it's kind of just like I'm going swimming, but with my clothes on. So there's really nothing to fear. So whenever, even now, like I go out in the rain or something like that, I'm like, oh, just like I'm swimming, but I got my clothes on and I got a dryer that can take care of
I
that
mean,
later.
I'm that's very true. I would say I'm a little spoiled now just being in Auburn. Um, it doesn't get that
Hmm.
cold here and I have the hitting bays if I need to, but I feel like if I hadn't gone through that when I was younger and just kind of like that process, like mental fortitude, I would not be where I am today.
I get that. I mean, people who aren't used to it will say things about it. We've been at tournaments before, Cooper and I, and someone will say, I've heard a guy say, I'm not much of a wind player. And it was a college golfer. I was like, dude, like, there's going to be wind. Welcome to fall and spring golf. You're going to have to deal with this all the time. Whether you're a wind player or not, you're going to have to get used to it blowing this fast. And it wasn't even that bad. So having those mental calluses are nice to go back to. Um, we appreciate you taking the time. The last question we ask every guest is, if you could go back to yourself as a junior golfer and tell yourself just one thing, what would that one thing be?
Well, I did a good job staying away from girls, so I couldn't say anything about that. I'd probably play a little more. Play more instead of spending as much time on the range as I did.
I like that. There's so many rounds. I mean, you're still playing competitively, but at the end of the day, like, it's always nice, to just have played more, and it's more fun a lot of times than just practicing. I like that, and I like the comment about girls too, because for guy golfers, there's the general statement, especially in high school, you'll see is like there's three things that can really kill your golf game, and that's girls, drugs, and alcohol. You have too much of any of them, and it could be a problem. And some people who we know have hit the trifecta on those. So it's important to avoid that. Well, we appreciate it. Where can people, if they want to reach out to you, learn more about you, follow you on social media, where can they find you?
On Instagram at jm.butler. And then, yeah, just be watching Auburn golf in the spring because we're going to be ready.
Thanks for joining us today. Please do us a big favor and like and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts so we can help others learn how to play better tournament golf. You can find us online at thetournamentcode.com, on Instagram at thetournamentcode, and on Twitter at tournamentcode. As always, feel free to reach out to us at those places or email us at daniel@thetournamentcode.com and cooper@thetournamentcode.com. We hope you join us as we continue to dive deeper into what it takes to play elite tournament golf.